Hello you guys, and welcome back to another video. I have Tyga here with me. He's now 9 months old, and it's been a minute since I have posted anything on the channel, and that is because we have had family and friends coming up to stay with us and take advantage of the nice warm weather for the last about 5 out of 6 weeks. So I haven't had much time to film anything, but I'm on a bit of a break before our last family group comes up for a visit, so I figured now would be the perfect time to show you what my July garden looks like in Zone 1A. So I am located in Stony Rapids, Saskatchewan, which is way up north. We are actually closer to the Northwest Territories border than anywhere else in the province, and that means I'm in Zone 1A. So zoning is basically how many growing days you have of frost-free in the summer, and so I have 75. My average last frost is June 10th, and my average first frost in the fall is I think around August 21st. Last year I was completely spoiled. We had a way warmer spring and way more growing days than what is seasonal and typical. This year is much more on par with how the season usually goes. Our last frost was actually June 12th this year. So because of that, I mostly stick to growing really cold tolerant plants. You're not going to see a lot of the warmer varieties. There isn't enough time to do a lot of things like squash or corn or pumpkins or kind of anything that takes longer or, you know, needs a full summer season. We're just not able to grow up here, so really you're limited to your root vegetables, things that are cold tolerant, and I do sneak in some tomatoes and peppers with very specific varieties as well. So the first thing I wanted to show you guys was my potato patch. I have actually never ever grown potatoes before. This is the first time growing them, so I have no clue if this is good or not. We'll see. And then I also have onions. It was just a variety pack from West Coast Seeds that they were giving out in town here, and so I figured if they're giving them out, I don't have to spend any money on them. Why not throw them in the ground? The other thing I would quickly like to mention is that this is a shared yard with our neighbor, and I am co-gardening with her, so you know, I'm referring to it as my garden, but it's actually ours, and we are splitting all of the harvest equally. But anyways, now that we got the semantics out of the way, this is my new little experimental patch. Haven't grown either of these two things before, so really curious to see how it goes. The other thing I'm trying new this year are these flexible growing bags. So these ones are a 10-gallon grow bag, and it's just like a canvasy material, but you can fill it up with dirt and you can roll the sides down to get stuff germinated, and they're something that I think will work up here, but I'm still trying to figure out how best to do it. I don't know if I should be filling it all the way up or leaving some space like I have here, but yeah, just curious to see if having the potatoes up by the house in full sun or in the back bed where it's a little bit more shaded makes any difference with how many we get. And even if it's a gardening video, I gotta give you guys an update on the chickens. I do still have 5. Nugget is hiding in the coop, but if you guys haven't met the chickens, that is Teriyaki, Buffalo, and then Honey and Chipotle, and no, I can't tell the two apart. And next we have my little lettuce patch, which is doing really well. I've cut back twice already, one chunk kind of here, one chunk here, and then the rest of this is pretty big, like my hand now is touching the dirt, so some of these leaves are getting quite large. And this is just a variety lettuce pack from Baker's Creek Seeds. We don't have Baker's Creek in Canada, but my mother-in-law was actually so kind as to pick them up while she was on a vacation last summer in the States. So it's very good lettuce. I'm really enjoying that. And that tower, actually, I was having trouble getting things to grow in it last summer, and I think it just needed some soil amendments, so I put some compost manure in the top, and it seems to be growing that lettuce exceptionally. So the next part here, this is kind of bare and bleak looking, but this is our carrot patch. I planted the carrots fairly late, partly because it was right in the middle of when all of the family and friends were coming up, but also partly because I just didn't get around to it. So sometimes lazy gardening still works, but all of the carrots are now coming up. And I'm trying out 3 different varieties. I'll put them on the screen here because I really cannot remember them. But one of them is a hybrid. I think it's the Bolio hybrid. And then there's Denver half-longs is the other ones. Maybe I do remember them. And then the red Chantilly, something along those lines. Anyway, so I'm trying out 3 different carrots to see which one does the best with our short growing season. And they are starting to slowly come up. There's some there. So these ones have just sprouted. And then beside the carrots is the bean patch. So this is all bush beans here, mixed colors. And the empty spaces, this was a pack that was 3 years old. This was a brand new pack, so much better germination on the newer pack, but I have reseeded the empty spaces, so those should hopefully be coming up in the next couple days. And then I also did pole beans along the back. So yeah, really excited to have some green beans, hopefully enough to can, because I did get a pressure canner. And I have never used a pressure canner before, but I managed to get an all-American pressure canner. So I'm very excited to learn how to use that and look forward to sharing some of those recipes and learning curves with you guys as well. Sorry, my hair is going crazy, but there are so many little black flies. I don't know if they will show up in the video or not, but they bite and I'm mildly allergic to them. So I've been taking a lot of antihistamines and yeah, just the wind and the bugs and everything, I'll be fiddling with my hair lots. This bed is probably the one that is struggling the most, unfortunately. So we have some zucchini here, which my neighbor planted, which are doing quite well. They've come up, and there's a transplant that we planted there, but it didn't survive. And then next is 3 rows of beets. They have come up. I don't know if you can see, but this is my 2nd year planting beets, my 3rd variety, and they come up really well like this, and then they just die. So if anybody has any tips or recommendations for that, please let me know, because I can't seem to get them past this point. I don't know if they need more water or more sun or what, but really struggling with that. And then beside, we're just doing radishes. The first ones got really attacked by bugs, so we ended up having to reseed it. And then finally, this is our little kind of mini herb patch. There are some chives that have been reseeding for a few years, and then this is going to be the dill patch here, which I just seeded yesterday before the storm, which is late, but hopefully we'll still get some dill in time, and I just dumped like half packets in there. So that is everything that's out in the garden in the yard, and then next we will do everything that's up by the house. So up by the house is where we keep all the heat-loving things, and that is because it is full sun and it gets quite a bit of heat from the sides of the houses. And so first off, we have the cucumber patch, and I'm so excited because last year I didn't get any cucumbers. I had the plants start and they got so stunted from a cold overnight spell that I only got 1 singular pickling cucumber off of all of my plants. So this year it looks like a much better start. The temperatures are much warmer, which is going to help that as well. So I'm going to turn the camera around and show you guys what I have going on. So this patch here has a rhubarb plant that has been growing perennial for a little while. And these are all of the dragon egg silver slicers. So we have really, really good germination. I'm pretty sure every single seed I planted germinated. And it's starting to bring out its first leaves in the center. So really looking forward to that. These will more be kind of like snacking, slicing cucumbers. And then over here we have the pickling cucumbers. So we didn't have as good of germination with these ones, but it is a new variety, so we're still figuring that out. So So this is the quarantine cucumber, and it is supposed to be a 45-day to maturity cucumber, which is well within my time frame. So I'm very excited to see how these produce. I'm not sure. At this point, I do still have enough time. I might go in and add some more seeds to try to see if I can fix some of these patchy spots. I have a suspicion this right here might not be getting enough light from the side of the box, and so it might not actually be the seed's fault, but at least try to fill in the holes on the back side. And then this is my reduce, reuse, recycle flower bed. This cooler was really gross because it had a bunch of bait that got left in it, and I never ever want to put food in it again. And so instead of keeping it in the house and making everything smelly, we threw it outside this winter. And then I had the idea that this could make a really good planting box. So this is a whole cooler, literally, of romaine lettuce and arugula. So you can kind of see, like, one of them is that type and then one of them is this type. I'm not sure which is which. I quite literally just dumped both seed packs in. So I'm really excited to see how that goes. I think this bigger leaf with kind of like the B shape is the romaine lettuce, and then these smaller, rounder leaves are the arugula. But looking forward to that. Really great germination there. And then this box is greens. So we have spinach here, and this is the mammoth spinach variety, I believe. And then on this side, we're trying some Swiss chard. Except I did get a volunteer spinach from where we had planted them here last year. So that's quite exciting. At least I think it's a spinach. It could just be a chard. They look really similar though, so I can't really tell for sure. Now that I'm looking at it, this back one looks yellow, so that one for sure is a chard. So maybe this one is chard too, but they just look really close. Anyways, so we had good germination with that, and then the ones in the front get a lot more sun. So I'm wondering if it's maybe a little bit too much direct sun for them, and they might have benefited from one of the shadier garden boxes, but they got planted here, so we'll see how they do for the rest of the summer. And I might move this patch next year more to where like the beets are. And then that brings me to my container garden section. So containers are super awesome because you can move them to the ideal location in your yard, and you can manage the water pretty easily. They can dry out quicker than in-ground beds, but this is how I started gardening, so I like using them throughout the years. So I have 3 Hungarian wax peppers in these ones right here, just something a little spicier because my husband loves spice and I have white girl spice taste, so I find the jalapeno spicy and he cannot taste any heat, so these ones are more for him. They are a bit slower than the jalapenos are, but I can't figure out if that's just a variety thing or it's that I'm not doing something right for them. They did get really wet, and as they were drying out, they seemed to do a little bit better, but we just got almost an inch and a quarter of rain over the last 2 days, so they are looking very wet again now. And all of the rest of these are my jalapenos. It's the exact same variety as last year, the early jalapeno, and I am already actually getting my first pepper growing right here. So last year I had 10 of these plants and I was able to harvest almost over 5 pounds of peppers. So really looking forward to see how many I get this year. This year I didn't get them out as quickly because of the cooler temperatures, and I do think that kind of stunted them a bit. You guys can see a bit more damage on the leaves, and I think it's just because they had to stay in containers a lot longer, like the seed starting containers inside the house, because it was just too cold to move them outside. And so one thing I have learned is that I truly lucked out my first year last summer gardening up here, because I started everything early and then we had a really early spring. And so this year I knew that I had probably started them too early and that we had a warm spring, and I didn't think we were gonna get as early of a spring, so I started everything 2 weeks later. And in reality I probably should have started them 2 weeks later after that, because my tomatoes definitely were the worst in terms of getting stunted in their seedling pots for not being able to take them outside or get them into bigger containers, because I just did not have enough space. So they unfortunately took the brunt of that damage. A couple of them, however, are starting to bounce back. So if you get some really leggy seedlings, especially with the tomatoes, doesn't matter how deep you plant them, they will grow roots. And even one of them, I accidentally broke it off from the roots entirely. I still planted it anyways, and it is growing and it's starting to produce flowers. So don't give up on your tomatoes. If they look horrible, plant them anyways. They might be a bit later in setting fruit, but you'll be surprised how much they can actually go back. Jessica from Roots and Refuge here on YouTube has one of my favorite sayings in the world, and that is plants want to grow. So whether you put seeds in the ground or seedlings, whatever it is, it's so much better to plant them because plants want to grow. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. You can definitely make a few mistakes and still get something, as opposed to not planting it and ending up with nothing. So the first victim was my cherry tomato plant. As you guys can see, I buried the stem because it starts here and goes all the way up and actually broke off. But because I planted it, and even though the actual like top part that I started isn't growing anymore, it's actually growing new plants off the stem. So we are probably still gonna get a few cherry tomatoes this season. The next set of tomatoes are these three here, and these are the Subarctic Plenty. This is one of my favorite varieties. I've grown them since I started gardening, and they always do fairly well for me. They are a short season variety developed in Alberta for colder climates, and for zone 3 specifically, this is a really great tomato. And as you can see, all three of these are producing blossoms already. So even though this one's looking a little rusty, it's got, you know, a very bent stem, it's basically folded over on itself, it's still going to produce fruit, and it might not be as efficient as maybe this plant is, but we'll still get something from that. And then the rest of these tomatoes are all the same variety, believe it or not, and that is the Bonnie's Best tomato. So that is the one that I actually broke off and just shoved the stem in, and it's still growing. It's definitely a little bit behind, but that's all right. These other ones were really ugly seedlings. This one is arguably doing the worst, even though it was one of the better seedlings to start. And these ones were completely folded over. This one's done a loop-de-loop. This one fell over completely, but it is still growing, so you just never know, plant it anyways. And then this is the one that I would say looks like how it's supposed to. So it's got nice, lush, thick green vegetation. It's got branching on the stalk, and it has already set off its first round of flowers as well. So really looking forward to trying this variety. I've never tried it before, so we'll have to see how it goes, but it's already got a few more blossom clusters up at the top. And then finally, again in the grow bags, which are new to me, is I am trying out a cantaloupe. I believe this one is 75 days to maturity, which means I'm going to be really pushing whether or not I actually get a cantaloupe off of this plant or not. But I'm trying it out to see how it does, and yeah, it's just a fun little thing to try for the garden this year. Well, that is everything that I have for you guys today. Tyga and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. And if you have any questions about Zone 1 gardening or any advice or suggestions, please feel free to share it in the comment section below. If you guys haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you guys in the next video.